Hey, everybody. Welcome to our podcast, The Old College Try. I'm Peg Keough, joined by my special guest, Jocelyn Pearson. Jocelyn is the owner and founder of the scholarship system. Today, we'll be doing a deep dive into private scholarships. How do you find them? Are they all created equal? How do they fit into a family's college planning strategy? Jocelyn put herself through college by leveraging private scholarships, which prompted her to found her company. Stick around to get all the tips and tricks. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So I am going solo today. Matt Carpenter's off doing other important stuff. And I'm super excited to have a guest and a friend. I've known you for a long time, Jocelyn, on with me today. We're gonna get in the weeds all about private scholarships. I know that's a super big buzzword in this space of college planning. So it's an important thing to kind of dig into, help people understand where it can fit. And Jocelyn Pearson here, she has her own company, the scholarship system. I'll let her chat a little bit of how she got to where she is right now in a minute. But before we get in the weeds, as we always do, Jocelyn is being a good sport, and she's going to talk about her song before we get into our content today. So you got the floor, sister.
Yeah, we are jamming out to K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack, and I have two daughters, and my daughter knows almost every word and it's to the point where I wake up with these songs stuck in my head because
And she's 4. I want everybody to know she's 4.
Yeah, please don't judge my parenting. Actually, funny enough, she told me, "Mommy, we've got to watch this." And then I ended up obsessed with them. The movie's actually pretty good. The song, they're all good, but Golden is definitely one that we are constantly jamming out to.
All right. Well, so everybody can go tune in. I'll have to go listen to that one specifically.
It's funny, actually, a lot of us parents have found it because they're top of the charts. And then you actually find the music first and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually from a movie. So, which isn't common, besides Let It Go or Let It Go. There we go, from Frozen. I think that one took off too. But yeah, so even outside of the movie, these songs are doing well.
I didn't even know there was a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
On Netflix.
All right. Okay, well, thank you for that. So why don't you just take a minute and just, talk about yourself, what got you here, whatever you want to share, and then we'll dig in.
Yeah. So, like Peg said, my name is Jocelyn Pearson. I founded the scholarship system now over a decade ago, which is insane. It started off with actually behind me a book, which we re-released for our 10-year anniversary last year. But it all came from my own experience of figuring out how to pay for college. So my family is in what I call the income gap, which is honestly where most families are these days, where somehow the FAFSA says, no, you can pay, you can afford for, college, need some help. And then there's just absolutely no way most families can cut a check to pay for it on their own. So my parents said, we love you, but there's no way we can pay for this and your siblings. I come from a big family. So this is where I was like, okay, let me pursue scholarships. Actually, a friend's mom said, hey, have you checked out scholarships? And so my first year, I was watching Grey's Anatomy, knocking out whatever I could, half attention, and thinking that I'm applying to scholarships. My parents think I'm applying to scholarships. And I'm sure you're not surprised to hear I didn't win anything, but my inbox was completely destroyed with all of the spam I had signed up for and stuff. And so at the end of the year, I fortunately realized, this was my junior year in high school, I realized, okay, this isn't working. Let me see what I can find. And I found a small local scholarship that was $500, and I won it. And so after that, I thought, okay, this is the one that I won. These are the ones that I didn't. And I started kind of deciphering what's legitimate, what's not. And that snowballed into actually a gradual process of a debt-free ride. So I wasn't one of those kids that got, in the newspaper for $30 million of scholarship offers from, 100 universities. I got into one school. I put all my eggs. I did everything wrong, right? I did everything against what my recommendations are now. And my school only offered, it was like $2,000 or $4,000 a year. So I had to get creative. And so I took that $500 win and kept on applying. I got enough to cover freshman year. And then some of them were recurring, and then I got enough to cover sophomore year and then enough for junior year and so on, to where I got 6 figures in scholarships, and I actually had overage checks most semesters. So that's where I got
That means
more
extra
money.
money, everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I know when people ask like, "Wait, what is that?" I'm like, "I know. It's a very cool term that we want to find out what it is." So it's where the credit on my account from all my scholarships was more than the bill. And so they would cut the check for whatever was remaining, and it saved me once I dropped my laptop, it broke, I could use it for that or whatever I needed for my expenses. So I got paid to go to college, literally. And
Yeah.
from there, everyone was asking me, "How did you do this?" After I graduated, and I sounded like a broken record, and that's when I realized this is a repeatable system. So I put it in a book while I was in corporate finance, and that was supposed to be the end of it. And then people, we want extra help. We want support. We don't just want information, we want implementation. And so we turned that book into a full on community course experience and support system for families. And now we've helped families get over $16.5 million to date and counting.
Nice, nice. Yeah, yeah, it's a great story. Great story. A lot of people get into what they do based on personal experience, so it's awesome. All right, so before we get in the weeds, I just want to kind of tee this up. So the term scholarships can encompass three big groups that I think of. So there could be private scholarships, and we're going to obviously get in the weeds on that in a minute, merit scholarships, and then some colleges will call what we like to call a CAP need-based grants scholarships, just to make things even more confusing. So it's all free money that you don't pay back. So that's the common thing. But the merit scholarships and the need-based grants that sometimes are called scholarships, those come from the colleges. And so I'm not going to get into need-based grants are different than merit scholarships. They're not offered for all 4 years typically, but I just want everybody to understand today we're not, and Matt and I have done this. We've gone in the weeds and we've had people on to talk about merit, and it's a great place to get discounts on the cost of college from the actual college endowments and their funding base. That's not what we're talking about today. So we just want to make sure, and as we talk about it, Jocelyn, we can talk about, okay, well, how is this different from a merit scholarship? Because there are some key differences between private scholarships and merit scholarships. So we just want everybody to know those are kind of the three big buckets, if you will, of free money. So we're gonna focus on the private scholarships today. Okay? Anything you want to add to that? Does that
I would
make
just say, for me, I always say the first line of defense, and I send our people to CAP. I love the software that you guys have to
Thank
discover
you.
possible discounts for families, because what's on those websites is not what most families pay, right? Each family's unique situation so differs, but it's a great way to bring down the bill, and then we've got to cover the gap, and that's where we can bring in those private scholarships. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
always say that merit money, that need-based money, if we're eligible for it, first line of defense, no discussion there. And then after we see, okay, this is what the gap is, now we've got to get a little savvy, and that's where private can come in.
Yeah, and I love that that's the way you approach things, because you don't just say, "Oh, just do what I do," because that's our line is like max out the colleges, then fill the gap with the private scholarship. So
100%.
as we always say, and she referenced the software, mycap.collegeaidpro.com. Get in there. Eileen, our producer, will have it with the podcast when it publishes. Get in there. You can put in up to 3 schools, see your student aid indexes. Like, please, please, please do that. Start the process. It'll make it much less stressful. So get in there. We have a private scholarship database in our software, and what Jocelyn was saying before, we don't sell your information. So your inbox is just full of spam after that. It's a safe place to look as well for private scholarships. So, all right. So let's get in the weeds on this. So when we say private scholarships, like what are I'm going to do a two-part question here. Like what are some of the sources, and are they merit-based, meaning has nothing to do with your ability to pay? Are there some that have to do with, hey, we know you can't totally afford this, you have some quote need, so you're eligible, or are they both? Can they be intermixed? How does that work with private scholarships?
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about private scholarships is they can be for anything and everything under the sun, different criteria, different GPA requirements. Some have none, some have need, right? And this is why it is something that we do with families for years, because there's always new opportunities, there's always new angles we can go after. And it's about finding the right fit for our students. So this is something that parents, I mean, we have assessments, we have to figure out, okay, not every student, even within one family, not each child will pursue private scholarships the same way. Each child's picture of a private scholarship way of paying for college will look different based on their interest, based on financial need, based on the schools they're choosing, based on the states they're attending in. So there is private money. Another term for private money is external scholarships. So we can think of it that way. Okay, where can we get money from external sources outside of these universities? So that said, to your question around need-based, are there some that are need-based? Of course there are, but there are many that are not. Or one thing I want to share with your audience that can kind of change their perspective, they define need differently. And you kind of hinted at this. So with FAFSA, you get a number, SAI, Student Aid Index, that says, okay, your family should be able to afford this. And based on that, universities take it and run. The thing is that private money sources, external scholarship sources, they know that number is just, for many families, not realistic. It's really not telling the full story. So even if your university says you don't have financial need, private scholarship takes in the full picture. Actually, I interview scholarship committees, and I just did one maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, and he talks about this. We ask for your FAFSA information, but we also ask for clarity on your real financial situations. The way I tell my families, if you will have to go into debt to pay for college, that is need. That is need. That is worth pursuing. Now, black and white, if it says your SAI must be this number or less, so the lower the SAI number, the less they believe your family can contribute, therefore the greater your need. So if they say your SAI must be 5,000 or less, okay, that's black and white. But that is very rare. Most private scholarships will say must have demonstrated need. Well, will we have to borrow? Will we have to go into debt on average for 21 years? That's need. And we've had families where they never would have pursued that without thinking of it that way. So that said, yes, some require need, but it's not in the definition of what we think of with FAFSA and with colleges.
Yeah, that's actually really nice to hear that they actually look at it and say, okay, we see that SAI because, it's so transparent and can be easily shared with on the FAFSA side, not the CSS profile. But we want to know more because, to your point, that's a lot of what we do at CAP. It's like, oh, my mother-in-law lives with us. There's this. I have a special needs child who's younger. There's just a lot going on in everybody's life, and I love that. I'm gonna give you credit, but I'm gonna use that quote. Like if you have to go into debt, and I would even add on in my deal, more than the federal direct student loan, so more than
Right.
27,000 in 4 years, you have need. And I hope
Yes.
parents hear that. Like that should be a bing, bing, bing. I might be doing something that's going to be hard down the road for me to pay back and my child to pay back, especially if you have more than one child. So yeah, I think that's great. And I think it's great that these entities that are doing it, they know enough to realize, hey, it's not as cut and dry as this family has a $70,000 SAI. I've had one mom in all the years I've been doing this that looked at, back then it was an EFC, and said, yeah, that makes sense, Peg. Most people are just like, that's for 4 years, right? Like,
Right.
no, you have to multiply by 4, not divide. So that's great. So that's a huge nugget right there. That don't look at your FAFSA SAI and say, oh, well, there's no way that this specific scholarship that says it's need we're out, kind of thing. So that's great. So if you were going to say like, and I think I know what you're going to say, but I want you to answer, like, is there an avatar? Is there a specific type of family, type of student, where it's just like, of course you should be looking at private scholarship?
So it's so funny you say that. We just did a whole live training for 2 weeks, walking families through understanding their child's unique superpower is what we're calling it, their scholarship superpower. And the entire point behind it is identifying what they do have going for them, not trying to fit a square peg into or whatever the saying is, a circle peg into a square hole, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're not now. So it's funny. So we categorize them, and you've got 4 different profiles, and One is that typical achievement student that people think of when they think of the stereotypical scholarship winner. High GPAs, top of their class, great test scores, involved in tons of things, and they're president of this or they're captain of the football team, just what they would think are the obvious winners. What's surprising here is even they have a downfall, right? They're often burnt out, overwhelmed. They don't have time. They're listing their resumes on essays instead of actually having personal deep stories. So even them, it's not necessarily a shoe-in. Then you've got we classify them. You've got these quiet ones that may not be in a ton of clubs, but they can nerd out on a certain topic, right? You get them going on train tracks. I was talking to someone the other day, loves trains, and it has turned into a complete passion around it, to a YouTube channel on it. This
Nice.
kid is in no clubs, right? But
Yeah.
can you talk to him about his passion? I have chills right now talking about it. Do you think there could be scholarships out there for him specific to his interests? Absolutely. And if he's pursuing a career in that, maybe kind of an engineering background, or, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what an easy shoe in, right? And the thing is, he's not going to be competing against valedictorians that want to be doctors at going to Yale. He's going to be competing against kids that can nerd out about train tracks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
right? And so it's what we need to do is find those private scholarships that bring our pool down to what we can actually win, and where we're competing against kids that are like us. And so for parents listening to this, identifying your students' unique factors and pursuing money in that way is where we don't have to be that stereotypical profiles. Sure, I could say, of course, higher test scores, of course, open the opportunities. But if we have a 3.5 or up, you're going to be eligible for most money. Like, so 3.5s and up, it's not a 4.0. This is where, those myths we talked about a little bit. I think it's interesting. A lot of parents and students eliminate themselves from scholarships as an option without even trying, because someone said so, right? So we already spoke to one. Well, we were told by FAFSA we don't have financial needs, so why would we get any kind of scholarship dollars? I have this conversation at least daily. And so right there, we've already busted that one, right? No, financial need is not the same definition. Here's the other one. Well, my student is not captain of the football team, 4.0, involved in a million clubs.
A super kid is what I sarcastically call them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. I
Yeah.
always joke, well, us mere mortals, we're not us mere mortals, we don't have all that. I didn't either, actually. I had a below average SAT score. I'm not a good test taker myself, and I had a solid GPA, but no, and I didn't even take the ACT. Again, remember, I did nothing right with my process until I started figuring out private scholarships, and even that was a bumpy road. So that said, there's not a stereotypical profile, and I know that people hate answers like that because it's super gray, but hopefully it can get someone's wheels, especially parents, your wheels turning of, okay, well, what can we pursue? What do we have going for us? And that's where the money is, especially with private, because there are so many different categories. And then to get even more specific, looking local, you're just naturally eliminating so many applications. If we're going for the Coca-Cola, they have over 100,000 applicants,
Yeah.
probably talking thousands of kids that are valedictorians, salutatorians around the nation. If we're looking local, you're competing against our local high schools, right? So again, how can we bring that pull down to something that we can win in? That's what it's all about. That's what it's all
Yeah,
about.
yeah, that's always my first, and I did it with my two, like, walk into the counseling office and just say, "What do you have?" I mean, my kid got like 1,500, some scholar athlete, and some it was a one-off, and one was
Yeah,
Windermere or something for freshman year, but it wasn't hard. There weren't First of all, there aren't that many kids walking into the counseling office, which they all should be. But yeah, to your point, the pool is much smaller, and just start local, and that's super local, your high school, and then just the greater community and the metropolitan area you're in, and then go out. But yeah, like the Coca-Colas of the world, it's like everybody knows about them. It's attracting everybody. It's just kids are so busy now, like over busy, and that's another podcast. They have too much on their plate. They can't even be kids half the time. The last
right,
thing you wanna do is say, "Oh, now you're gonna apply to all these private scholarships that you don't have a chance in hell of getting, but they're
right,
huge. They're huge, so we gotta do it?" But I
right,
love your focus on superpower, because I think every kid is gifted. I've never liked that term. When my kid want my his first grade teacher, who ended up being a second grade teacher, guilted me into testing him to be in the gifted program. And I was actually excited. It sounds weird. When he didn't, the English part, he just missed it. And I'm like, I don't want him. I don't, nothing against gifted classes, and the teachers there were a bit stressed out because the parents were a little high strung. And I was like, you know what?
Bet.
All kids are gifted. I have twins. Like, they're very different kids. And my daughter wasn't any worse than my son. So I love the superpower deal, because when I was a teacher way back when, every kid has their superpower. You just have to pull it out of them. And I think that's great that when you're looking for private scholarships, that's a great way to do it. And the kid with the train tracks, like, talk about a unique admissions application that people are
Yeah.
going to go, "I never read about a kid who likes train track." Like, that's going to stand out to the
Right.
readers big time, and it's a real thing. It's not the did some research project that a bunch of kids do and could even find that through a company. It's just they're just and the beauty of it is it's that kid. They're not going and doing something. That's who they are, how they wake up in the morning. So I love that focus in general. And then that can be advantageous on the private scholarships part. So I think that's great. So let's talk about typically how private scholarships work. I said at the beginning, these merit scholarships from colleges, which is, as we both agree, is a great place to start. They're
Mhm.
almost always offered for all 4 years, not need-based, because
Mhm.
it gets assessed every year if your income and assets change. But for merit, so is that analogous with private scholarships? How does that work as far as recurring ones?
So it varies. I had a combination. So I will say that those local ones, if we have parents listening and you have a high schooler, get on it, because not only is it low hanging fruit, but actually sometimes private local scholarships will be renewable if you win as a senior. So I had an example like this where I got a scholarship, a small scholarship, I think the first year, maybe $1,000, $1,200. But because I got it as a senior in high school, I, as an alumni recipient, could apply all 4 years in college. And each year I got actually more and more money, to where by my fourth year, it was more than doubled that annual amount. But
So
I
how
wouldn't.
common do you think that is as far as the, greater pool of private scholarships? Is that pretty common?
So that's for local. I would say when you're looking at foundation scholarships, a lot of times we have community foundations that have a lot of scholarships that you just kind of have to do one application and select which ones you're eligible for. It's very common for that specific type, which
Mhm.
we always tell our families to go after. So for most families, we should be navigating to those minimum. A lot of the other scholarships are one-offs. I had another big one that ended up, it was renewable. It was $2,000 a semester, $4,000 a year. That was renewable for 4 years. And actually, I got that as a freshman in college. So had I needed a fifth year of college, I would have gotten that fourth payment. But because I graduated on time, I never got it, which was fine. So I did have multiple recurring, but I also had a lot of little wins that were one-offs. So I don't necessarily have a statistic for you as far as how many are renewable versus not. And it also changes. Every year, someone's like, let me offer a scholarship out of the goodness of my heart. And then maybe not the next year. So this is where we always want to check back. Also, maybe we didn't win it one year, but we can get it the next year. So this is actually where our family is. We save them and kind of set the reminders for following years as well, so that our efforts are snowballing here. So
Yeah.
it's a combination. Some are renewable, some are one-offs, but the dollar amounts, like you were talking about, $1,000. I've even seen, I would say, anywhere from $500 to $5,000. These are the ranges where somehow some kids or parents too look at them and they say, oh, that's not worth my time. And it's like, we've had students spend 30 minutes on an application and win $600. That's a
That's
$1,200 an hour
Yeah,
rate,
that's pretty good. That's pretty good
right?
rate of return. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
can add up. And someone might be hearing this and thinking, "Oh gosh, so we have to keep on applying." Yes, however, like the train track story, right? Once we figure out that story, once we figure out our student's superpower and really fine tune it, we can rinse and repeat. We had a student win over $92,000 in scholarships and in private money. And her mom even said, once we got like 5 or 6 essays, we could just pull from them. We
Yeah.
just rinse
Yeah.
and fine tune them based on word count, maybe tied it in a little bit with the committee we were applying to. But for the most part, they could rinse and repeat. And there's an art to it, but that's where we can save a lot of time as we do this, especially Once we get a winning essay, then we know, okay, this story, this
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, proof of concept, like, wow, we got 3,000 here, so this works, and they're different entities. So,
yeah.
what about as far as timeline? So, we have parents listening that they might have kids in college, they might have a freshman in high school. So, what's the timing? When should they start to think about this?
So if I could, I would have every family spring semester junior year working on this. Earlier you mentioned, wow, what an admissions essay. Yes, imagine if we just knocked out scholarship applications when one, tons of families in our school year aren't even thinking about it yet. But two, we just worked out our essay well before the admission season. That means when we get to admissions, it's going to be way less stressful. We have our story
Mhm.
fine tuned. Maybe we even know it already captures judges' attention because we might have won a scholarship. But also, that frees up fall semester for more space for scholarships because scholarships do open up fall semester senior year. And while everyone else is focused on admissions, we could be applying for private money when it's naturally less competitive because other people, it's not even on their radar yet. So
Yeah, yeah,
if I could, and I know junior year is already busy with college visits and test taking strategies and all that, but if we could, I would say start then. But that said, it's also never too late. When I graduated from college, I actually cashed a final winning check on my way home from college graduation. It was a cash award actually instead of so a scholarship typically is awarded it's for the following school year. It's sent to the university most of the time. At the scholarship system, actually, I give out scholarships each year, and that's how I do it even, so that I know the money pays the bill first.
yeah, yeah,
But some organizations will choose a winner and immediately give that check. That was me. So I kept applying all 4 years, even in my senior year. And I won an extra, it was five or $600. And I got the check at the end of the school year and it was just mine. So it's
yeah,
never too late. But ideally, I would say junior year, spring semester, if we can. If not, let's just basically now as early as possible. Anyone listening to this probably has a junior or older. And then what's interesting is when families hear this, they think, "Well, I'm looking for scholarships because our first kid, we didn't do them and I'm regretting it." And
yeah,
now they
yeah,
hear and they're like, "Oh, so you mean I can get my college student doing this too?" And the answer is absolutely. And so this
yeah.
becomes a big family endeavor.
Yeah, you can also find merit money. My son got $5,000 from Kelly School Business at IU, go Hoosiers,
Yeah.
just by walking in and saying, "Do you have any scholarships?" He applied, not a lot of people. So I want to ask you which scholarships, and this is, we're generalizing here, but which scholarships in your opinion are worth it and which ones are not?
Yeah, so when we're looking at scholarships, this was my challenge was I was doing the ones that I could knock out while watching Grey's Anatomy, like I said. If your student can knock it out in a matter of minutes, if we see wording like no essay, easy scholarship, enter to win, weekly drawings, these are not scholarships, these are drawings. These are luck-based sweepstake scholarships. So I've had parents say, well, someone has to win them in doing this for now 15 years, 10 years professionally, and add on the 5 years of myself doing this. So over 15 years, I have never met anyone. Now, I know one woman that talks about their child winning one. Other than that, I've never seen anyone. If we spend 15 minutes on 10 of those and instead take that time and put it into that one winning essay that can
Hmm.
actually win money that only has 5 applicants or even, let's say, 50 applicants,
And can be repurposed, the essay,
it is a way better ROI. So we call these scholarship red flags. If it is enter to win, based on luck, at the scholarship system, our families have a much higher not only percentage of wins but also dollar amounts. And we say it's because we teach them how to be more competitive. You cannot be more competitive if it's based on luck, right? If literally the only way to increase your odds is by entering more, then we don't want to do it.
yeah,
Now, if it's asking for resumes, essays, portfolios, something where your child can sell themselves, we can always improve that. We can learn how to sell what we've done better. We can realize, whoa, your YouTube channel is actually a really cool thing, and we should talk about that instead of being like, well, you're not in any clubs, so you have nothing to speak on. These are where identifying those superpowers, dialing them in, learning how to talk about them, that's where we can increase the odds in our favor. And the only way to do that is if they are asking us about these things. So those
Yeah.
sweepstake ones, they're not even giving that opportunity. Right, what your favorite ice cream flavor is and why in 100 words. Let's not waste our time there.
Yeah. So one more thing I want to talk about, and then I'm going to ask you for a couple takeaways for everybody. So there is this thing that they call scholarship displacement. And through all the years of working with kids, I've had it happen. So this is a situation where, and it really varies from family to family. I'll tell you the story of the one that is like the typical where having that outside scholarship, people don't feel like they're ahead of the game. The student got into Stanford. She was a big Girl Scout. The Girl Scouts gave her 15 grand. Stanford is one of these schools. There aren't tons of them, but they meet 100% of need and they don't do merit. So they had met 100% of need for this student. The parents were expected to pay like 40,000. And this money came in from the Girl Scouts. And I said, yeah, Stanford is going to decrease what they give. Now, they took the loans and the work study, which is the best practice to do because great, now I don't have loans. But what most parents think, and how, in my opinion, it should be great. We got 15,000 bucks. That's eating into our student aid index. So we're paying, well, that's in most states, at most colleges, that's not how it works. So it is what it is. So I got them to break it over 2 years, so it softened the blow a bit, but they lost a little bit of grant. So can you just quickly just speak to that, the scholarship displacement that you've seen?
So this is a unique situation because the student got into an incredibly competitive school
And
that
only
does
need-based. Yeah.
need
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
So I would say that a lot of people that worry about scholarship displacement are not actually going to be in this situation. So I do want to
Yeah.
just say that
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
very extreme, but legally they have to remove from loans first. That we have an article at the scholarship system, we have a blog. If you look up scholarship displacement, it has the actual legal verbiage and it shows they have to take from debt money first. They cannot take from and what's unfortunate, and I doubt this at Stanford, sometimes financial aid workers are recent grads that need a job while they're,
Mm-hmm.
they're not financial aid experts by any means. I've had families where I tell them this, they call in and they say, whoa, wait a minute, actually, you need to take away from the loans first. And they're like, oh, you're right. Let me reclassify. Oh, there's the $3,000 back,
Yeah.
and had they not been told that they have to take from loans first if they to scholarship displacement, if they hadn't been told that, they would have just been like, oh, that's a shame. I will also say that there are now 6 states, it used to be 1, there are now 6 states that have made this practice illegal. California, Maryland, Minnesota, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Washington. They are in these states, they cannot do this. Okay, so again, arming families with the fight that they can take back to these financial aid offices because again, sometimes these officers genuinely just don't know better. So this is where we can go back to them and say, hey, wait a minute, this is not allowed. And I hope, and actually, again, it used to be only one state, it used to only be Maryland.
Maryland, because that was the only one I knew. What you said, California, Maryland, Jersey, PA,
Minnesota.
Washington, Minnesota. Okay.
Minnesota.
Because I'm jotting those down. Yeah, because I knew Maryland, but I didn't know about the other one. So that's great.
Which is incredible, right? We're moving in the right direction and
Yep.
hopefully this will continue because it is so wrong that you can't say this child just earned $15,000
I know. It is.
and it should
Yeah.
count towards what we have to
Right.
pay.
Exactly. It
So I
shouldn't be a
totally disagree with
windfall for the
displacement.
college.
Now, Stanford is Stanford, okay? Let's say that. But if we are talking about 2 really good schools and it's not Stanford, it's not an Ivy League, right? This is where I would choose a school over another one if they don't participate in displacement over if they do.
And I 100% agree. Also, it's appealable. It's appealable. And if you have 2 like schools, you could play them against each other. Well, hey, XYZ did
Absolutely.
this and you're penalizing me. If you treat it this way, the deposit check's in the mail, kind of thing. So it's another, card to play on appeal. So just so everybody knows, this exists, but it's not, they need to do it right, as Jocelyn's explaining. And also, you can always reach out to these colleges. We're big appeal people over here at CAP, and this is just another thing that you can appeal on. You have leverage with these schools They want to get butts in the seats, basically, most schools. The Stanfords of the world, they've got their pick, but that's not the lion's share of schools.
And the other reason why her situation is unique, right? It's 100% need meeting, which means they covered the whole gap. A lot of schools are not that. And so just know that until we hit total cost of attendance, EOA, cost of attendance, this is not even a discussion, right? So if your gap is, if your SAI is 20 grand and they've offered you 15 grand, so we're at 35, but the total cost is actually 50, there's still room to
Yep.
play there. They can't even discuss this until we're at that total cost of attendance.
Yeah.
We've just got to make sure we're arming ourselves with information. And like you said, going back because there is wiggle room despite what they say.
Yeah. And if what Jocelyn just said with those numbers is making your head spin, set up your account, mycap.collegeaidpro.com. You don't have to own all of this and understand there's just so many pieces to understand here. And you literally could be leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table from private scholarships, from colleges. It's just really, really important to get your ducks in a row as a parent to guide your child. So 1 or 2 takeaways. I mean, there's like tons of nuggets that you've shared today, but what do you want to end with?
Man, there's so much. I think, one of the first steps is don't rule yourselves out. Know that, okay, we just have to figure out what is our child's unique factor that we can pursue. We want to start for sure junior year if we can, but the earlier, maybe 6 months ago was the best time. The second best time is right now, no matter what school year we're in. So start now. And I think that identifying, we've kind of shared this as a current throughout the entire interview, but identifying that story, it's not just about using that to identify scholarships we can apply to and be eligible for, but it is also what we can write. It is so important for your child to write in a storytelling manner, because if you think about it, these committees are reading dozens, if not hundreds of applications. And I can tell you right now, again, we've given out scholarships for a decade. I can still tell you some of our winners because I remember their stories. I'll never forget one. And I remember the house I lived in 2018. So we're talking, at this point, nearly a decade ago, this student wrote about bottlenecks, but from a Boy Scouts perspective. It was the cutest story ever. It's still in my head. And I have read thousands since then.
Yeah.
That story is where we stand out. So helping our child, having conversations with them, what is a unique experience? And it does not have to be saving the planet. I think that's the other thing. Parents think, well, my child's had a pretty decent life. They really have not had major setbacks or major losses or anything devastating. That's okay. It's about finding what's a unique experience, like being obsessed with train tracks. It doesn't have to be that the world ended for them. And if it did, of course, let's talk about it because they've been through a hardship. But if they haven't, it's more about finding what is their unique experience that we can speak to. If we can take that into finding money, that more money, they'll naturally be more competitive. But if we can also take that into the essay, they're going to stand out, be memorable, and win the money.
Yep. And it helps with admission. I mean, it's just a win-win. And it's also, you don't have to have tons of extra funds to ship your kid to some foreign country to do this or that, or pay somebody to help do research. Because, I would also argue if that's not what's in the kid's heart, that comes through. These people read hundreds, thousands of, they can feel the cool stuff and the authentic stuff. They just get good at it. One of the people that we know that I just had on the podcast, she's a reader for Berkeley, and she talked about what grabs her, and a train track obsession would grab somebody. It's quirky. It's just nutty. And that grabs people when they're just reading. So anyways, well, this has been amazing. So good to see you. It's been way too long. And I can't believe we were in Charleston and I didn't even think to ping you that, but we'll fix that if we're down there again, even if I'm down there for fun with my hubby. So
please do.
Great to hear from you. So many nuggets. I know I have notes. I'm sure all of you, I love having people on. I always say that because I learn, and that's what makes life fun, is learning all the time. So great to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time. And we will see everybody next time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, please follow us, share the show, and maybe even send it to a parent or counselor who would enjoy it. I'm your host, Peg Keough, and I was joined by my special guest, Jocelyn Pearson. Jocelyn is the owner and founder of the Scholarship System, a company that guides families through the process of finding and securing private scholarships. This episode was produced by the wonderful Eileen Campbell. We'll see you back here next week.